This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tom Albright. Greetings, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the Central, Eastern, or Pacific time zone. I'm in the Central, so technically it's still morning, but the two guests I have braved the early mornings of the West Coast. So thank you, guys. First up is Mr. Rich Fregosa from FregosaDesign.com. Jeez Louise. He's a programmer extraordinaire. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's a Saturday morning, and I think it's my first ever Uncle Richie No Pants podcast. So
for that, good Lord. There's an image that I will not get out of my head anytime soon, much like the Let It Go song from Frozen. Okay. My kids were watching Disney this morning, and it's still in there. I won't sing it for you, though.
Do you want to go to Starbucks?
Nice. Next up is Josh Shirago. Josh has a website of his own. It's called soundreason.org, an audio genius. He also has a fancy schmancy Infocom class if you haven't filled up your dance card yet for Infocom. So how are you, sir?
Doing well. I haven't let it go yet today, so I'm
Thank you.
Still holding on.
Nice. What's your class, and how can people sign up for it?
You can attend my class. It is IS043. It'll be on June 19th, which is Thursday of the show at 10:30 a.m. And you can register at infocomshow.org and just go into the university class registration. Also, it looks like I will be speaking. Schedule is still a little tentative, but it looks like I will be speaking at some point during the show at the Audinate booth. So that will be fun for me as well. Yes.
Cool. Look at you go. We have actual professionals on our podcast.
God forbid.
All of our AV Nation podcasts are brought to you by Middle Atlantic and their new customer-focused website, Middle Atlantic Products, what great systems are built on. You know what? When we started out the week and I scheduled you guys, I was like, there's not really a whole lot going on. Oh, wait, but then the last 2 days, holy cow. I'm going to kick it off with Apple just because they're a bigger company. That can be debated. They're a bigger company than Samsung. We'll get to the Samsung one here in a second. But Apple is purchasing the most fashionable headsets and headphones in the world for $3.2 billion. This is according to USA Today. That's right. They are buying Beats. Now, part of this, actually, Dr. Dre gets to be on the board or gets to be an Apple employee of some sort, according to, again, USA Today.
Please make him a genius at the Genius Bar.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. So the first question is, both of you are around Silicon Valley and around Apple. Rich, we'll start with you. Is this a good idea? I mean, is this a good purchase by Apple? And if so, what exactly? What's the point behind it? I guess what's the driving force?
The first analogy that I had when I thought about this, and again, kind of reading kind of the buzz in the Valley, is buying. Everybody's got, oh my gosh, they're buying Beats, and Beats is synonymous right now with headphones. Especially in the urban market. Yep. A lot of the conjecture right now is much like when Google bought Nest. They're not quite buying the product so much as they're buying some mind share and some access. And a lot of people are pointing not towards Dre, but towards Tommy Iovine, or Iovine,
Tommy Iovine.
Who co-founded Beats with it, and really for his connections, because iTunes is it's floundering, and everybody knows it. One of the so there's this two-part thing that's going on that came up as I was reading and doing some research on it. One was that Beats has, I think it was like a 74% share of the urban market in headphones. Jeez. I mean, some ridiculous amount. And when you push that towards how like the iPhone is able to reach the market, I think iPhones only have about like 22% penetration in the urban market. So by bringing Beats and by bringing a different look potentially to Apple, they're potentially going to be able to open up into markets that they've never been able to hit before. So a lot of it winds up being, how are we going to be able to acquire companies to get into it. Second was with Tommy IOV. I'm going to keep mangling his name. Is that his connections? And part of it is they're hoping that he will be able to get farther than a lot of the Apple executives have been able to with Hollywood and with the music industry, because everything's moving to streaming. I think, what was it, year over year, streaming has gone up like 46%, and iTunes and their adoption rate has dropped like 20%. So again, the math's not lying here. I think Apple is making some moves, not even because they want to, but because they have to. They have to be seen as moving forward. They haven't made any huge acquisitions. Google's getting a lot of the press, and they're trying to. I think what we're going to wind up seeing is at some point kind of a whole brand new iTunes coming out and starting to leverage what this Apple TV experiment. Again, all of these things seem to be coming together. Amazon tried releasing their device. All of these things that I'm looking at, and people that I've been talking to is this going to be their push into the eyes, ears, and hearts of this next generation coming through, and finding something that has Apple cachet, but at the same time, they can reach into markets, much again like the urban market, where they're just not making that much headway.
It's interesting that they would have to buy another company to get the youth market, because 10 years ago they owned it, right? I mean, 5 years ago they owned it. That was first of all the iPod, and then obviously the iPhone. That was the device to have. But I think you're right. The urban market they have sorely lacked.
One of the reports that I said was that that I was reading said it's like a 74 or 72% Android to Apple in urban areas, and again with the urban market, and so so they're trying desperately find ways to, because again they're not going to make a brand new. Apple isn't necessarily going to come out with something new and revolutionary again, in the near future that we know about.
Maybe. I mean, just because Mr. Jobs died doesn't mean that their brain trust went away, does it, Rich? I'm asking very carefully.
I guess we'll find out. There's a lot of people that left Apple. Yes. There's a lot of smart guys that aren't there anymore.
It's been an exodus. It really has been.
And so it's kind of the equivalent of what happens when your founders go, and you leave it to that next group. And so, Tim Cook is a fantastic executive, but he's probably going to be remembered as the guy who kind of maintained the company, as opposed to grew or caused kind of the rebirth of the company.
Well, and tying in with what you're giving here in terms of the marketing aspect, look at the fact that Steve Jobs' keeper, after 18 years, resigned this week. The woman in charge of keeping the gates closed and keeping people out, she resigned. After 18 years, she's done. And all of a sudden, immediately after that, they go out and they purchase something to help them expand market share. But, I mean, this 74% statistic is slightly misleading due to the fact of, look at the cost of an Apple device and look at the cost of a low-cost Android. I mean, there is a monetary factor in there that has to be kind of considered, because Apple don't sell cheap product, period.
I would say yes, I agree with that. But again, look at, it comes back to urban cachet. You will have people who are walking around with $300 and $400 pair of Beats, teenagers.
Oh yeah,
walking around with those. So I think that's actually a very important number to look at, because they will invest those discretionary dollars in that segment, because again, it's much like wearing the Coach and the my wife teaches in the inner city, so I see this firsthand, and I see 14-year-old kids whose outfits, their one outfit that they are wearing costs more than probably my entire wardrobe.
Oh, and well, I mean, it goes back to the old Sprite slogan: "Image is nothing, thirst is everything."
Right.
It's they want that image, they want that picture of the status symbol that comes with it. I mean, you and I get all the same news since we're out of the Bay Area, but what's the statistic right now as to how many as to thefts and assaults are based on smartphone stealing? I mean, that status symbol and that image is what people are after right now, and it comes into that. But you go back into looking at it from the other aspect of it, beyond the image. I mean, you're getting a company, Beats, which, while it has a reputation, their product has actually diminished in quality because 18 months ago their partnership with Monster ended, which means the hardware went to crap. Monster makes a better product. In fact, I saw an article in Forbes about this where one of the guys said, well, if you're going to buy it for the hardware, why not just buy Monster? It's cheaper. But granted, there was also an uneducated aspect of that where he said, well, you could also just go out and buy Shure or Sennheiser. I mean, they would be less expensive. Not so sure about that. And plus, Apple wouldn't know what to do with the rest of the stuff that they make. But there's also a point in here because we've talked about, talking about the headphones as they are as a status symbol and as urban share and all those kinds of things, but also add in, there's one other thing in here which I haven't seen anybody write about, which is, remember the partnership that Beats had with HP? They went in and started
with HTC, wasn't it? HTC's?
No, not mobile. Not mobile. The HP PCs.
Yep.
When they were making the sound cards and putting Beats audio in PCs.
That's right.
Think about how crappy a native Apple sound card is. Why Apple's notorious for making a product that is really good at talking to other really expensive things. That's what they're very, very good at. But the actual native hardware for their sound has always been a little iffy. That's why when Pro Tools blew up in the home recording world and in the studio recording world as an app on a Mac platform, you don't see people that do the recording with anything native to Apple. It's always external. So now if you're going to bring in Beats Audio and you're able to implement that into already existing PCs, this could help in terms of their PC sales, or their laptop sales. So it could help improve on the MacBook in terms of the quality of what they're producing there, which again ties right back into your idea, Rich, about the fact that we're going to get probably a new iTunes based on the fact that it's a stale model. It's updated every 4 months, and it just pisses people off even more every single time. So
well, and look at how bad iTunes Radio tanked. I mean, it's they pushed it out, and another part of it. Keep in mind, Beats a year and a half ago bought Mog, which was my favorite streaming service out there. I thought they were just beating everybody, and Mog based out of Berkeley. One of the reasons I think I liked them too is that they were local guys.
Also,
and then
Pandora.
they just. What's that? Well, yeah.
So is Pandora.
Yeah, but I like more of a Berkeley thing than a San Francisco thing, man.
Pandora's Oakland.
That's true. They're down the street.
So Pandora's Oakland, and you'd prefer? Oh, come on, Rich.
Yeah, where's the native love?
I'm a Pandora guy. I have been for years. As a matter of fact, I buy their premium service. It's $35 a year for crying out loud for not getting ads. That's first of all, it's cheap and it's great. But go ahead.
Are you finished?
Yes,
Your
yes.
Mog.
Your Mog. Half man, half dog.
Yeah, exactly. But they launched Beats Music, and I subscribe to all of them because again we're testing all of them, and it's supposedly the concept for it. Trent Reznor came on as like the chief creative officer, and it's going to be moderated by music studio executives. All of these things. I don't know if it's necessarily working. I know that the artists are really excited about what Beats Music could represent. And so, again, I think that Apple is just kind of reaching out and saying, we've got all of these things that really aren't working. If we can bring some people who understand the music industry better, perhaps it'll, again, my gut feeling is that there's going to be something drastic going on with iTunes in the next few years. If they're going to spend this kind of money. They need to. I mean, they're going to have to come out with something to justify to the shareholders why they spent $3.2 billion on what everybody's seen as just a headphones company.
Yeah.
Well, and so, Rich, have you played with the Beats streaming service at this point?
Yes, I was actually. I was using the beta when it came out.
How is the user interface?
I'd show you. So the way the interface is weird in that when you first sign up, the first thing it asks you is like, okay, who are some of the artists you like? What do you like to do? Do you like to kick back in the crib? Do you like to go ahead and drive in? And I'm seriously, and it's like this.
Did they really use the term crib? Oh, jeez.
I mean, there's like 500 different adjectives.
They know their demo.
And it was this, originally it was kind of like when you first sign up, it's like this guided wizard with like really weird shimmery, I mean, it was like going to you had to go through a rave to start your music service at that point. Everything was kind of shimmery and bubbly, and it's very heavy on, just like the moving graphics and keeping it slick and packaged. And what it does, rather than starting you out, going to the artist or artist radio, like the first thing that they killed artist radio. There's no artist radio function on it. So, much like Pandora or iTunes Radio or Mog or a lot of these services, a lot of what I do is just that. You can either, start with just that artist or like that artist, kind of like the Amazon model. Mm-hmm. Their purpose right now and what they're really looking for is, we have all of these people that have really cool music, and we're going to curate it for you, and then we're going to go ahead and present you music in a way based around all of these, they're basically setting the metrics with the adjectives at that point. And then they're trying to match it to the genre and the artist and the style and everything else. I mean, you can see, the algorithms that are going on behind it. But in terms of the front layer package, they're, trying to make it like, almost like this club feel. I mean, that's the only thing that I could think of when I was first using it. So far, maybe it's because my generation, I don't listen or interact with music that way. Maybe it just didn't work for me. And, quite likely, again, we were talking about like last week, is that I've exited the market demographic. I'm over that, that part of the hump of, they may not want my money. They might want somebody else's money. And so, we played with it. We still use it. There's been an update. I mean, Beats just signed an agreement with AT&T for your family plan. So like for $14.99, you can have up to 4 people on your cell plan with Beats. So, they've reached out and they've got these partnerships, and I think maybe that's where they're missing. There's such a great marketing machine that I think it's almost interesting is that the executives in Beats get the marketing and the music and the demographic, the youth market right, but they may not have the back end side to be able to deal with tech correctly. And Apple deals with tech correctly, but may not have that artist and that marketing cachet with that market. And so, for me, I think it's going to be, it'll come back to that mind share. You're going to get people who are going to be crossing, and you're going to get more of the music people working on the music and movie stuff in iTunes, and you're going to get the tech people working more on the back end stuff with the Beats product.
Based on what you just said about how they set it up when it first starts, the first thought that popped into the back of my mind, though, was this is an initial setup product, and then once it goes, it's less interactive in terms of as you go through it of, oh, I like this artist, I don't like this artist, I like this song, I don't like this song, as Pandora and iTunes Radio and all of the other ones seem to be. There's a part of me that when I heard you just explain the setup, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you sit in your home, you do this initial setup, then you go out and you connect to the iPlatform in your car, which is what they are pushing right now. And that would actually be, it actually provides a little bit safer user interaction, because you're not just sitting there reaching over to a touch panel to rate something while you're driving. It's a little bit more intuitive based on the way that you're describing these algorithms, based on how you react on the initial setup factor. So that might be a little interesting. I'm jumping out even farther on my limb of speculation, and I'm about to fall off and die. But
oh no, you're fine. I
well,
like that.
It's a thought.
It is a thought. I like that. So, all right. Let's move on to the other big story that happened.
Here's for me my sentence for the way that I want to play my music is based on a sentence. I'm on a rooftop and feel like making bad choices with my friends to oldies, and then I can push play the sentence, and it builds an algorithm playlist based on things like that.
Wow.
Why are you on a roof? Making bad choices.
Making bad choices, yeah.
Because I can choose the rooftop, the gym, in the car. So again, the algorithm is based on all of these items, and it stacks them together to keep dropping you further and further into a genre. For me, it doesn't work. And
again, I see this working in such a mobile platform in terms of car. Like, there was that little kicked under the rug story about Apple and Tesla. And it really got kicked under the rug. But can you see how that platform would just play in that environment?
But Songza already tried it, and they're, they crashed and burned miserably. I mean, who even knows about Songza, right? Mm-hmm. And that was their big cachet. But remember, they had billboards all over the 101 at one point. Trying to tout that. And didn't catch. So maybe it will. Maybe they figure that they've tapped into it. It's going to be an interesting year, but I would say that it's going to be at least a year before we see anything
Oh yeah.
substantial.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because the deal has to go through, and then all the changes and everything have to happen.
And all the people at Beats have to be brainwashed. I mean, really, you have to be initiated into the cult of Apple. It's
fired,
a process.
or fired outright.
Yeah.
One of the two. All right.
Welcome
next
to Beats
story.
Music. I'm your Apple genius. How may I help you?
Jeez. All right, this story made me sad by no small stretch of the imagination. I was talking to my buddy Ted from Strategy, and he goes, "I'm writing a story. I thought just of you. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it'll just ruin your evening." And lo and behold, it ruined my morning. Yesterday, Ted posted this. Samsung is cutting their investment in OLED. Are you freaking kidding me? If you've never listened to this podcast or this is your first time, I absolutely love the potential of OLED. I love it on so many different ways. I'll post links to the really cool YouTube videos of somebody taking a sledgehammer to an OLED display, and the color is gorgeous. Everything about it's gorgeous. Here's the problem. The geniuses that come up with these ideas initially are not the same geniuses that need to manufacture the stuff. And I've learned that to much my dismay. They can come up with some really great products and some really great ideas, but these aren't the I guess the manufacturing engineers is what we can call them. So Josh, first a couple questions. Is this the death knell for at least large format OLED, and are we just going to maybe possibly get them in mobile and that's it?
OLED is such a weird little thing because people don't generally know what to do with it just yet.
Make a big TV. That's what they should do with it.
I know what they should do with it, but the big question here and the thing that comes up with OLED is how much are you willing to pay for that big LED TV? And it's that price discrepancy which still it's too drastic still for the large format. But when you look at the options that are still out there in terms of mobile, yes, I think OLED is going to find a home in mobile. I really believe that, mostly because people are going to, as OLED becomes more public and becomes more knowledgeable to those that aren't in our industry, people are going to basically respond by saying, wait a minute, you mean I can have a screen that doesn't break when I drop my phone? Why don't I have this now? Where is this? Why doesn't this exist? And there's going to be a push for that. But it's, again, in small format. It's going to be more. The phones are going to climb in price. It's just the state of affairs. But for the large format OLED stuff, there will eventually come a time where, as people get used to it in mobile and as it hangs around, it's going to linger. It's got to kind of eke its way into the mindset of people that this is an option. But the response, I mean, even going back to CES earlier this year, the response of curved TVs was pretty much flatline. It was it's great picture, it's great color, but it's curved. People just didn't see the big to-do about it other than the contrast, other than the brighter colors, the more vibrant colors. The responses I saw just from CES, and this is and as we've seen the trend a lot these days, it's going consumer to commercial, and this is a product that is going to have to go consumer to commercial in order to be adopted.
You really? I mean, because here's the thing. I see more. There's two things I see with OLED. I see large format curved displays, honestly, for digital signage. And the second thing I see, and this is where my background in education, the coolest thing in the world would be for Draper to partner with Samsung and come out with a manual pull-down screen that, oh yeah, by the way, is your display. How cool would that be, and how much simpler integration? First of all, in classrooms, especially in K through 12 and some smaller community colleges, you've got the projector sitting out here, 15, 12 feet, and you've got a professor trying to instruct, and you've got the beam coming through them. And yes, you've got the short throws that are kind of eliminating that. But I just see a nice little curved screen, projection screen / OLED display, solving all those problems and being cool. So.
Oh, it'd be cool. It would solve those problems, but now you're paying for an OLED screen, and you're paying Draper to partner with them, as opposed to paying for that projector and that screen, which cost you 1/5 of the hardware.
Not if they make a lot of them. If they make a lot of them, the price goes down. I'm at basic supply and demand. Never mind.
But there needs to be a demand before there needs to be a
I'm
massive
demanding
supply.
it. Am I not enough? Dang it!
Tim, we love you, but
I know.
you can sell.
I can sell at least 2, maybe 3. That's
Then damn it,
How many
Samsung, build your factory.
Exactly. How many OLEDs do you currently have in your residence?
because they're freaking $50,000.
Ding, 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 ding.
I'm sorry, they're 30,000. The Sony was I can get a Sony for 30,000.
Now, keep in mind, it's not dead yet because LG
It's
has not
dead.
completely abandoned it.
It's
But
dead.
Again, I still believe if you get people to believe to see it in a mobile platform, something they're carrying around in their pocket, on their tablet, if it reaches that kind of penetration and people are willing to invest in it in that way, they're going to wonder why their mobile phone and why their tablet provides a better display than their TV at home, and that's going to make the push. But it's got to get there first.
Okay, but still, we're still going to have the same issue, right? Where, okay, you've got it in a 4-inch, 5-inch, 7-inch, Samsung Note, right, or the latest iPhone, and that's great. And this takes us back to the manufacturing point. They can do those smaller form factors at a drastically reduced price, and yes, people are going to start wondering. But then we're going to have the same issue where they're not able to ramp up production and make this a financially viable display, right? That's what Samsung's running into. Yes, technically they can do it, but back to your point, Josh, the price is still going to go up. And yeah, 20 years ago, to buy a plasma, you were going to pay $20,000. And I don't know if it's a change in mindset or what, but 20 years ago, early adopters had no problem doing that. And I guess that's where I was pinning my hopes and dreams on for OLED, is that those early adopters would still be willing to pay $20,000 and $30,000 for a really great display, and eventually manufacturing would catch up and they would be able to lower the price, and it just simply hasn't happened for whatever reason.
Well, and again, price is the big thing. Call it the recession, call it whatever you want. People aren't willing to spend the money on those kinds of luxury items. But the other format that you brought up was digital signage. And I could see it in terms of super large format displays, thinking stadiums, thinking, arenas, places.
The Jaguars' new TV.
Yeah, where you're going to be hanging these things at a center scoreboard, or you're going to be hanging these things outside, because then you can shape it to be whatever you want. You can really have a lot more flexibility with that display, but it's still got to get to that point first where there is a demand for it. And this is one of those products that it was, look at this really cool thing that we've made. This is amazing. This is fantastic. We've improved display quality X-fold. Okay, who wants it? And there was just crickets. Other than guys like us, where we saw it and said, this is amazing, this is incredible, look at what we can do with this, look at the opportunities, look at what it's doing, and how improved the image quality is. And when we go out and we show it to people, and it's like, okay, well, that's nice, but why does that TV cost 10 times what that TV costs?
Yeah. I think when
that factor is still the big one.
Well, I used to teach a music education class in St. Louis, and every person I ever showed that, and I'll put links to this on the website, on the show notes, there's a couple different OLED YouTube videos that have been around for, good Lord, 08, 09 maybe. Every person I show this to are flabbergasted, right? It's not, oh, well, it's like, holy crap, I could take a sledgehammer and beat the bejesus out of my cell phone. Cool, awesome, sign me up, and the Samsung commercial that they released last year that had, the ubiquitous hipster technologist that had his oversized pad, technology pad, and then the guy shows up and he flips his Samsung out and it's a tablet, and then he folds it up and it's a cell phone. those two people, you show people that, and they're like, "Holy cow, that is awesome! I would like one." And then they get to the price issue. So I don't think it's the technology so much as it is the price. And I think, Josh, you kind of hit something on the head here with the recession, that people are still kind of gun shy when it comes to parting with their money, at least large amounts of their money.
Yeah.
Mr. Fregosa, where does OLED go from here? Is this, is it, as I fear, the death knell for it, or like Josh says, LG's still in it, and they're not quite dead yet?
Well, I mean, I love LED. I remember when we covered it with at CES, and we were talking about the Sony version of OLED. I remember they had flown the 2 prototypes out, and they had somebody guarding it the entire time. What were they calling it?
Was it Crystal?
Crystal. Yeah. Yes, they're crystal displays. And then Sony kind of went, oh yeah, forget about that. Don't mind us. We weren't here.
Well, then they partnered with Panasonic, and then they dropped that too.
Right. I keep beating this drum. I feel like I am continually being the forecaster that I need to get out of my industry, because it is mobile. It's smaller form factors. I mean, the one thing that I keep thinking about is, we're just talking about, well, it's a $10,000 display. We're going to enter the age of the $1,500 phone and the $400 TV. There's going to be that. We're seeing it already. I mean, think about it. Whatever my new iPhone is, without the subsidy from AT&T, I think it's like $900. Consider that. Again, where technically it's free for 2 years because I signed up with AT&T, but it's a $900 piece of hardware. You could buy 2 plasmas for that, and people are shelling it out willingly every year to 2 years. There is a significant shift that occurs in terms of how people are relating with their technology. Again, I've got a 42-inch over there sitting in the corner. I'm sitting at my desk. You know what I wind up watching my streaming on most of the time? My iPad, sitting next to the side. Because it's easier, because I can reach it, and away I go. And I do this for a living, Yeah. And there's a little blurb in Ted's article at the very bottom when he goes, but Samsung is considering looking at smaller to mid-size screens. Of course they are. Just in terms of the production quality and everything else, it's easier to make it smaller. You can make much more of it smaller. It's always, I think when Panasonic first started with their large plasmas, they said, well, we've got the factory where we can make a 103-inch plasma. So the minute we could get the glass that big, well, 42-inch TVs dropped because we could get 4 of them within that same piece of glass, basically. That's where you saw it going. That was kind of always the traditional model. Make it as big as you can, and the smaller stuff gets cheaper because you're working out all the kinks in the production and tooling up and everything else. But the investment in the factories at this point, to be able to invest in them and tool up, they're just not getting the returns on it anymore. Sony's approach, their new approach now is like, yeah, we're not doing the mid-market. We're going ultra luxury with our stuff, with the new Bravia stuff, their 4K. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And who else? And what happens? You've got Apple that sells 100 million devices of these over the course of 2 quarters. All of the assembled Android devices, again, another 100 million devices over, say, a 6-month period. Think about those numbers. Why would a manufacturer in their right mind go, yeah, if we're lucky, we maybe sell 6,000 of these this year?
Yeah.
So there's this divergence of the worlds. Yeah, is digital signage, all of these things from a commercial standpoint, does that work? Yes, if you have established players who are committed to that market. And I think that's what's going to happen, is that I think some of these manufacturers are just going to say, you know what, we're going to concede this market to somebody. We're going to let either a Chinese manufacturer come in or somebody else come in who is having that curved display or your menu signage or whatever it happens to be that's more utilitarian. Because again, somebody's starting up a little sandwich shop down the street. If you're telling them the difference between how wonderful OLED is or a digital signage piece that they can lease for $4.99 a month, that's the economics of it. I think from a purist standpoint, does it break my heart? Yes, I've been waiting to get one. I've been waiting for the price to come down. I really, really want one. But at this point, I kind of view that I'm going to see it on a tablet much, much sooner than I'm ever going to see it on something that I would put in my living room.
And I think I agree with you. I would be okay with that, right? Because again, the colors of OLED, I mean, just the pure, the reds and the, I mean, everything about it is that the colors are more vibrant, they're more true. But I would be okay with that because, like Rich said, 9 times out of 10 when I'm watching something, it's on the tablet, and our kids are doing that just natively. I mean, our kids would, Rich, you're usually the same way. Would rather watch it on an iPad or an Android device or a tablet rather than watching it on a TV because, again, they can control it. It's easier to navigate, and they can just go right to whatever it is they want to watch.
And let's not mistake that as more and more universal over-the-air Wi-Fi becomes available and the pipes fatten up, you're going to see these huge spikes again coming through. We don't need over-the-air signals or satellite signals or any of these services that we used to anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's the technology shift. The technology shift is forcing that. The reason why mobile and these other devices hadn't taken off originally, because again, Apple had the Newton. I had a think about it. But I had a Palm, or not even Palm. Yep. It was the tree. What did they call it? The one with all the buttons on it. I mean, Palm had their versions of it.
Well,
I mean,
Palm had a wireless in the late '90s. They had a wireless that you could sync wirelessly, but then they had a phone. Their first phone was called the Trio.
The Trio. That's it. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But again, the technology, the speed to be able to get. Could you imagine trying to stream video on a little 2.5-inch rectangular screen that was half of it was a keyboard?
and the colors were green and light green. So
yeah. So again, it's not just one thing that we're seeing. I mean, there's so many other items that are factoring in, and Josh, I mean, you're seeing it. I mean, we see it more than any place else, I think, around here. Because again, it just there's so many different options. And again, let's take into account. Let's find out what happens with Aereo in the Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I'm just going to twist the knife here at the end of it because when it boils down to it, let's not forget that effectively the word we keep hearing when it comes to display technology is commoditization.
Whatever.
Twisting that knife on you there a little bit.
Thank you.
I mean, when you can walk into a Best Buy, and believe me, there are display manufacturers that are currently in the process of looking at putting headquarters in the Silicon Valley region. And when these bids come out, and every single one of them says, "Oh, display is OFE." Okay, great, you guys make it. We're surprised. If it's not OFE, we're surprised. And simultaneously, other technology that they make, we're supposed to sell them, and it's got their name on it. It's kind of like, that's weird. But yeah, I mean, we see this with headquarters that are being built and headquarters that are being developed. You can go into a Best Buy, you can go into a Price Club, a Costco, a Sam's Club, any electronics store across the country, and you can pick up a display for a few $100. I mean, up to 42 inches at this point. And when you get into the boardroom technology, I mean, when you're getting into these smaller and smaller boardrooms and these huddle rooms that are very popular, you don't need massive displays anymore. And the mobile is, I mean, everybody relies on their devices. We're never without an electronic tether at this point. And that, Rich is, I completely agree with Rich with the fact that that's where innovation and development is going to begin, because that is where people are having the most interaction with their technology. Is they're going to start pitching that faster than they're going to be looking at the large format, because people are too busy looking down to actually see this giant screen that they're about to walk into.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add even one more thing on top of what Josh was saying. Right now we're on a Google Hangout. The three of us are in front of displays. We're not in front of TVs, video conferencing units, where we could theoretically, as this changes, be doing this all in front of tablets with one another.
Oh, and we have. I mean, we've had more than one guest have to do it on an iPad.
And the constant rallying that I keep hearing from the commercial crowd is, it's got to be this, it's got to be reliable, we require this. There's reduced expectations in the corporate world these days because of the price. And often I start hearing, I can afford to be optimistic. I don't need it to always work because I can always default to my tablet, to my phone, to XXX. You know, they've got all of these things backing up. And so for me, you know, again, maybe I'm not popular about it, but other than like maybe government or something where like lives are at stake, the commercial argument, it doesn't fly with me anymore. I keep hearing it, and I'm like, that's not a valid argument. That's a wish.
No, commercial AV has gone the way of the MP3. We just need it to be good.
Oh, come on. All right, here's okay. Slight backstory. I wrote a piece in commercial or for Commercial Integrator that said, you know, don't go down the commoditization road. I was talking with a buddy of mine that works for a speaker manufacturer who took issue with me saying that speakers are commodities. And he made a good point, and I wrote it in my piece that, you know what, all of these guys have valid, all of these companies have valid value, right? It's our job, and this Josh wrote on the blog that took issue with it, that it's our job as integrators to sell that value. Now, yes, that you can go to Sam's or to Costco and get two 60-inch displays and a big bag of beef jerky for $50. You can do that, absolutely. But to Rich's point, and he mentioned the government, but there are certain, I shouldn't say certain, but there are companies that they want it to work when they want it to work, and if it doesn't, then it's beholden to us as integrators to tell them why it doesn't, and to explain to them along the way the benefits and the drawbacks of choosing the commoditization road. You know, yes, certain products have become quote unquote commoditized when you decide on a product based on price. That is almost the textbook definition of it. However, we as integrators can pull that back a little bit and educate. Doesn't mean that they're always going to take our side. It doesn't always mean that they're going to listen to us, but it's our job to educate, and that, I guess, that's where my piece was going. Go ahead.
Let me now, to defend myself on this as a detractor of this comment. I didn't say you were wrong. I said it was the industry who was commoditizing our product. I said it was the customers.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
But I said with all due respect.
Now,
with all due respect, you old fart.
Also, in fairness, as a response to that, on my website this week, I published an entire educational article about how to select proper speakers for an application based on specifications. So,
and here's the thing: we got guys like me and people who are coming up in the industry are going to read that and take that into a bid meeting and say, you need this, and based on this and this and this, and they're going to look at you and goes, nah, we'll just take some bows. Thanks for it.
Can I have one of those qualms over there? That's $5, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Don't you sell? Can you get this for like $5 or $10 a piece? You know, I don't care how many wattages it is, or you know the.
I know a guy.
All right. Let's talk about our friends over at Mid-Atlantic for a second, guys. Let's where am I going here? There it is. There's their brand new spanking website. MiddleAtlantic.com is proud and a proud sponsor of AV Nation and AVWeek. They got a new website, and Becky over at Mid-Atlantic sent it to us this week, and totally redesigned, totally reimagined. They've got tons of stuff, videos that you can go check out stuff. They've got unique market solution sections where you can either it's AV security, AV, resi or commercial, broadcast, structured cabling, education applications. Basically, you tell them what your application is, and then they have a wizard and walk you through it. It's very cool. A live chat feature, which probably isn't happening right now because it's on a Saturday, but normal business hours, you can chat with someone. All sorts of stuff, very easy to navigate. When you go to MiddleAtlantic.com, you can go to the original site as well as to their new site if you'd like. It's entirely up to you. There's the new site right there. It's very, very cute. So go to MiddleAtlantic.com. Tell them that AV Nation sent you there. MiddleAtlantic.com. What great systems are built upon. All right. And actually, Middle Atlantic is one of the sponsors of the AV Nation AV Tweeps Tweet Up. Which, if you're going to InfoComm this year, is on Wednesday, June 18th, between 4:30 and 6:30 in room in 217. Don't get that confused because that's actually also our booth number, which is very convenient. So, N217, just remember that number for both. So come by, say hey, have some free drinks and food, and you can win a projector and some other stuff. So I think my buddy Michael is going to get a pair of Momentums from Sennheiser. So. All right, let's talk about Extron for a second here. And the reason for getting this is because, Rich is on our control show, State of Control. We probably should have talked about it this week when we recorded. Extron has their new Extron Certified Control Professional. And they are moving in the direction, and I'm not making this up, they are moving in the direction of the Crestron and the AMX certified programmers, the independent guys like Rich. So, Rich, first question is, what is Extron thinking, and why are they going down this road of the independent programmer road?
I think because a lot of times in specs you'll see, System X or System Y, and then they'll require a certified programmer or a certified engineer or somebody else, and Extron wants to be able to join the party. They're late to the party in terms of seeing that software is the road that they need to go down because they see the writing on the wall. The days of the analog switcher, the days of the hardware encoder, decoder, all of the gazintas and gazautas. And again, we said it a couple of times. The last business that I would want to be in is in the, in the switching business, in the existing switching business, because we're seeing it already. Again, it's Josh already sees it. We already see it coming down the line. There's up and comers. Look at what some of the other companies are able to do with software solutions already over standard IP. Is it great? Is it completely reliable? No, but it's getting there. And I think Extron is saying, we need to move over towards finding ways to keep our product in there, and also finding a way for our dealers to be able to leverage themselves in there. Because again, for their dealer list, if they have an Extron certified control professional, it can be a venue for them for existing and new system, or for new systems, but it might be a venue for them to come back into their existing analog systems. That's what I see it as, is being able to pitch this at coming back to their old systems and saying, by the way, you have a list of certified professionals who can come in and spruce your stuff up. That's how I read into it. It's really a matter of their new product that they've got, but probably leveraging some of their older stuff to be able to say, we now have tools that we can use with this, and you don't need to go to a Crestron or an AMX or whoever it happens to be. We now have the tools and the people to be able to do this without an additional significant investment on your part in hardware. I love Extron, but their model, I hope that they continue.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because we're going to get into some control stuff for a second. AMX and Crestron have, let's call them certified programmers, right? Where you take a test, you go through several layers of training. Crestron's independent programmers are called CSPs. I believe AMXs are called ACEs. And now Extron has this. Should companies like Control4 and Aurora and other ones that have control in control lines, should they go down this same road where, you're a Control4 house, and whether it's a resi spec or it's a commercial spec, so you can say, I'm a Control4 certified programmer. Is there value there?
I think it's an apples and oranges comparison with somebody like, it's Control4 as an example. We talked about it in the State of Control show. There is a difference between purpose-driven code, which is, starting from scratch and building something for an end result, and assembled or configured code. And I think that Extron still is focusing on that purpose-driven side, where, we've got these tools that we give our dealers, programmers, and we allow them to kind of manage it on our way through. So, a company like Control4, Savant, ... down the line. Those companies are saying, you shouldn't have to have a $100,000 a year programmer on staff. You shouldn't need that to make these devices work. We're taking the pain out of that for you. because we have these modules, or it's configured, and we've got the commercial brand, and we've got the resi side of it. So I think that those companies, it would actually get away from their key message, which is this isn't about programming. This is about, just getting the parts to work. Extron, is still primarily commercial. It's still going to be in schools, in boardrooms, in military bases, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're going to need some dedicated professionals for that, who again, in a bid spec, just to be able to cover their bases, to be able to say, yes, I've got this.
Okay. Did you say $100,000 a year for a programmer? I need to talk to my agent. So, Josh, where's Extron going with this? I mean, is it like Rich said, just so they can play with the two other the two other big control companies in the space by having a certified programmer line?
It's funny. I've already heard about this program twice from Extron because
Are they asking you to do it?
They're not asking me to do it. They're asking some of the guys at my company to do it. But they showed up a couple months ago to mention it and say, hey, we're going to be doing this because we have programmers that are sort of in their little inner circle at Extron, and they've been poking them going, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it?
If they threw a party and had a booth, I might show up and do it.
Oh! Wow. They have a booth at UB Tech. Go ahead.
Yeah, they show up to other shows.
They show up to Vegas during InfoComm. Never mind. I shouldn't do that.
Well, in addition to that, I also went down for their certified technology 2-day training session, and they brought this up. And of course, the entire time I was there, I was, the thorn in the side of the trainer for every general statement he made that was wrong. But they got into this thing, and basically what they were talking about was, well, we want to provide you with, we don't want to alienate the Extron dealers that we have, and so we're going to create this tiered system of, well, we know there's people out there that need basic needs, and we want to be able to provide a much more closer equivalent to what Extron and Crestron have, what AMX and Crestron have, because Extron is being left out of the party of higher end control systems.
Yes.
And so that's where this whole idea came in. But it's a tiered system. You have the entry level, which is going to give you a certain amount of control capability and going to give you a certain number of devices, and then you have the certified pro, the GC Pro version, which requires in-person training at an Extron facility for multiple days. I think it's 2 or 3. And you have to send your guy there for 2 or 3 days to be trained and to be certified in this, and then you have the access to the more sophisticated systems. So it's kind of this teasing little plan of, well, we'll let you kind of experience it, and then once you've gotten a feel for it, and we feel confident that you have the significant amount of time in the field doing this programming, we will allow you to come into our training session and give you the training to be a pro person in order to have in order to expand on what these systems are capable of and give you a more in-depth feature set.
But hang on, because that's no different than what Crestron does, with the exception of it's not 2 or 3 days. It's 3 classes and then you have to take a test. I've not gone through AMX's process yet, so forgive me, I can't speak to them specifically. But I mean, Crestron is, you've got 3 classes, and to get into the second class, you have to write code and be kind of invited into the second class, and then to get into the third class, you've just got to have so many months of in the field training. So that aspect is similar.
Yeah.
The difference, though, is the fact that with Crestron, your company still has access to all their product line. With Extron, my understanding is that you are limited to the product line until you have somebody that is an ECP, the Extron certified professional. Is that right?
You are limited in the GC Pro aspect, which is they're super advanced. You don't have access to that until you have a fully certified individual, which means that you are limited to a single control processor, which is capable of talking to, I think it's, 8 IP addresses on a system.
6, unless they've expanded it.
It's 8 or 6, something like. I think they're doing this one in 8s, if I recall correctly. It's 8, and then when you get to Pro, it's 32.
Okay.
But in addition to that, it's while this does provide for BYOD capability, it's still operating on the mirroring system until you get to that GC Pro aspect, where then you can finally get into because that's really where this is headed, is the BYOD. They're going after that because they don't have a BYOD solution with all of this stuff until now. Because every time it was a BYOD solution before, it was mirroring whatever your Extron touch panel was in the room. Now, with these link licenses built into this whole certification program and the GC Pro aspect, now you can finally have pure independent GUI on a BYOD device, but that won't happen until you go through the training process. So
is it driven by the processor, like AMXs and Crestrons can be, where you can load it on the processor, or do you have to have it loaded on your touch panel? Do you know, or on your device?
You load the $5 app on your device. So that's, I mean, again, I have. This is because I already went through the 2-day full Extron training course of let us show you all of our product. To which my response is, if you show me anything audio, I'm going to take it and throw it back at you because it's terrible.
It's not terrible. It's just
It's the only amplifier I know that comes with a free white noise generator.
Oh, jeez. Have you ever used their DSP?
I don't like their DSP because I hate the layout.
Well, it's a static, it's a fixed configuration, which is the one thing I don't like about it. But I have used it in some education applications, and I did like the DSP. Again, the only thing I didn't like about it was the fact that it was fixed config.
The GUI on their DSP was the first time I had ever had to go back and actually think about signal flow since the first time I got my hands on a Yamaha PM5D.
Wow.
Which was when it first came out. I've never had to think about signal flow and how it operates through a device until I looked at the Extron DSP and just went, what the hell did you do?
All right. Well, I'm gonna
welcome our next new sponsor, Extron Electronics.
Oh, my foot. They wouldn't talk to me with a 10-foot pole. So.
Now, keep in mind, I've got guys who love their DSP and think it's
But
wonderful.
I told you guys, with all due respect.
I hate the GUI. I hate it. 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 I hate it.
And apparently he doesn't like their white noise generator, also known as their amplifiers. So.
That's the rule, right? If I say with all due respect.
All right. You know what, guys? That's going to do it for today. With us has been Josh, I hate Extron amplifiers, Strago from soundreason.org. His class number is IS. No, say it again because I've written it down wrong.
You can attend my course at Infocom. It is Audio DSP Fundamentals, course number IS043 on June 19th, which is Thursday at 10:30 a.m. I do not know my room number yet, but I know seats are starting to fill up a little bit. Last I heard, I had 25 signed up for my course.
And how many do you know how many? Is it like 40 or 100 or?
It depends on what room they stick me in.
Okay.
Last time I taught it at Infocom, I taught mass notification system design for audio, back when NFPA 72 was still a thing. And I had probably 12 attendees in a room that would seat maybe 30, but there's also rooms there that'll seat close to 100. So they gave me, I have to be thankful to Infocom and express my gratitude because they gave me a prime slot on a Thursday morning, not first class of the day, to see if we can get some attendees in there for this. So I'm very grateful to Infocom for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can people get a hold of you or your stuff?
You can find me on soundreason.org. You can find me on the tweets at @jsrago, SRAGO. You can find me on LinkedIn at Josh Srago. You can also find my work at the Red Band group, as well as the Infocom All Voices blog.
Very cool. All right. And also with us is Uncle Richie, Rich Fregosa, fregosadesign.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And how can people find you or your musings?
The assorted social media outlets, Twitter, at rfregosa. You can find me on Google+. My website, fregosadesign.com. I am a contributor on CE Pro as well, so cepro.com, where I will hopefully be seeing you at Infocom and with all you other rabble-rousers. And the Facebooks, and pretty much, type my name in Google, and somehow it'll show up. And there's some kind of cool stuff coming up with my name associated to it that once it's ready to go, it'll be kind of fun.
Very cool. All right. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me. It's not very exciting. But go by the website if you would please. At avnation.tv. avnation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. We have a weekly AV Apps show. Matt Scott and Phil Cordell. They review AV apps. Rich is on another show that we have called State of Control. We cover, honestly, the control and automation industry. We've got an education-focused show, all sorts of others. So go by the website. If you are going to InfoComm, a couple different things. Our booth, as I mentioned before, is at N217. N217, we're in the North Hall. Who did I say we were at? Well, we're on the opposite side of Microsoft. How about that? So if you go in the North Hall, hang a left for Microsoft, hang a right for us. We're also going to be recording AVWeek there and a number of other different shows. And thanks to a bunch of sponsors, Audio and Middle Atlantic and AMX and ASK Proxima and Extreme Networks and some others, we're having an AV Tweeps Tweet Up on Wednesday, June 18th between 4:30 and 6:30 in room in 217. You go up the escalator there, it's on the right, in 217. So come by, say hi. We'll have some prizes to give away. So, and also thanks to Middle Atlantic for sponsoring AV Nation and their new customer-focused website, Middle Atlantic Products, what great systems are built on. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.